Welcome to Cascade Conversations. Join the Cascade Partners team and our network of trusted advisors as we work to demystify the details, terminology, and strategies of acquisitions, divestitures, financings, performance improvement, and restructuring.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the next version of Cascade Conversation. I'm Eric Green, a managing director here at Cascade Partners, a middle market investment bank serving privately held companies in the range of 20 to 250 million in revenue. Today I'm joined by a good friend, a healthcare savant, and just one of the greatest human beings I know, Jason Gile.
Thank you.
Jason represents Spartan Benefit Advisors, and he is, as I mentioned, a benefit specialist. I have a passion for sell-side readiness and helping the companies we serve get prepared for that sell side and that transition of a business. I've had the great pleasure of working with Jason, seeing how he works with his clients and thinking about healthcare and benefits as a part of that process. So Jason, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
Absolutely.
Pleasure.
I'd love to share with our audience your background and a little bit more about Spartan Benefit Advisors.
Sure. Spartan Benefit Advisors, we're a independent boutique agency that works with companies that range in size from 50 to 1,000 employees. Really focus on kind of changing the status quo of what people are doing out there in the market. I've had the fortune to work with Eric on a few things on the M&A world, and happy to be a part of here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. In sell-side M&A, benefits come up, but generally kind of as an afterthought. People focus on revenue growth, COGS, all the things that are natural, but benefits is a big portion by dollar size of the P&L. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You know, most people, when they're looking at their P&L, benefits is usually the second or third largest line item, but it's often overlooked, especially when you're looking to possibly sell your organization.
Yeah, it's something that HR specialists tend to focus on, and it becomes an afterthought, as I mentioned. But why prioritize reviewing benefits? Of what benefit can benefits have in helping companies as they're approaching the market?
Well, like you said, like I mentioned earlier, benefits is usually the second or third largest line item. And when most companies are looking to sell, they're focusing on more of the property casualty lines, the general liability, the cyber, things like that, and they're often overlooking benefits. And it's a really an area where you can actually make the most effort in reducing your costs, which obviously create valuation.
Right. As many of the listeners know, we trade oftentimes on multiples of cash flow, or we call it EBITDA. And so taking out cost has this multiplying effect on value.
Sure.
Right? So looking at every line item, particularly one as large as healthcare benefits, is of huge consequence to the value that's unlocked at a sale.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like selling your house. If you have leaky pipes or things like that, you want to fix them before you go and sell your house. So this is just a way to kind of tighten up everything within your organization. It also has an effect on your employees, because obviously if you're selling to another organization, if your employees are happy, they're healthy, they like their benefits, when you're going about changing to another organization, if that's really tight, then that makes that transition much, much easier.
Yeah. You talked about an operational metaphor and a cultural one. Let's go down both those paths. But first, operational, the leaky pipe. What are some of the red flags that you see when you go in and help a company assess their benefits and try to make either cost savings or additional benefits that might be helpful?
So like I said, it's usually an item that people don't look at from a strategic perspective. Most of the time they're getting their healthcare renewal 60 to 90 days prior to it being in effect. And that's just not enough time to actually make some strategic decisions. So what we try to do is help organizations be more strategic in their look at their benefits. They're going to look at the claims data. They're going to look at different type of funding mechanisms. The standard one is fully insured, where you pay your premium and the carrier just covers all the claims. Well, as you grow, you need to look into that claims data and find the transparency on where you could make changes to the health plan that not only reduce the costs, but actually help the employees better consumers of their health plan.
That's interesting. Just for our listeners, there is a break point in terms of size of company by number of employees, right?
Right.
We're a small company, we're a taker of price. But as you grow and mature, you start to be in a negotiating position with the carriers. Is that correct?
Correct. And it's just like any other part of your business, you need to find out where the money is being spent. When you get larger, you have more insight on what actually happens, where your people are going to see doctors, what sort of procedures are they going to. The example that I always give is people who go see a doctor and need to get an MRI on their shoulder for having shoulder problems. There's the exact same picture being taken of your shoulder. At one place could be $1,500 if you go to a hospital, versus if you go to an outside imaging center, it could be $300. It's the exact same thing, but the employee has no idea that they're actually paying that additional price. But once you get larger and you get in some of those more alternate funding, self-funding, captive models, you actually have insight on what's happening, and you can direct your employees to go to those lower cost procedures, and that not only saves the employee money, but it indefinitely saves the company money.
Right. And you said direct, but also maybe even incent
Correct.
employees to go and choose.
Correct.
And I think as a consumer of healthcare, oftentimes I don't know those differences and don't know where I should be going or where I can save money. So I think that's an interesting point that you bring up. I think oftentimes even the providers don't know the costs.
That's fair.
I shared a story with you about a vaccine where I asked the doctor before I received it what it cost. And we had some fun inside of an application trying to figure out the Medicare code for that vaccine.
Right.
And we couldn't find it. But it's interesting. So as you get bigger and you can get more transparency into the data and help shape and incent people to a lower cost provider with the same type of results, right?
Yes, there are tools out there that we provide to organizations that really give them kind of a checklist or even a list of, hey, if you go to this provider, it's going to cost you X. If you go to the other provider, it's going to cost you Y. And there can be vast differences in price for the exact same thing. And we feel that most consumers, if they have the ability to shop, are going to go to the lower cost provider.
And it's not only cost though, but also the tools help with outcomes, right?
Correct.
So you're not just telling people to get generic and go to the low cost provider, but to those that are also providing great care and have good outcomes.
Correct.
So there's that balance, right?
Absolutely.
And the tools are there to support that.
Absolutely. They're becoming more and more prevalent now.
Got it. So when you would go into a larger organization, you'd be able to look at all that claims data and help them understand.
Correct. Once you kind of get over that 100 employee mark is really when you can kind of dive into the claims. But that doesn't necessarily mean you need to be over 100 employees to do that. Different markets allow you to have more access, just depending on where you are. Michigan being one where you need to be a little bit higher employee count to get that data, but other states have different rules.
Yeah. And so as claims go up, and if you're not got your eye on the target here, you're going to receive higher renewal rates, right?
Correct.
And you're going to pay more and more each year. So it pays to dive into the data and really understand, correct?
And it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of your people who are on the plan barely use or don't use their benefits at all. They're going just for their standard checkup. It's that 20% that drives majority of the claims. So what you try to do is focus on those folks. You don't want to deny them care or tell them where to go, but you want to give them the tools to make great decisions, not only for them and their care, but also what's best for the company and them, personally, what's going out of their pocket.
Thank you for joining us for Cascade Conversations. For more information, please visit cascade-partners.com or call 248-430-6266.